Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 4-Star Podcast. I am your host, Jordan DuPont, as always, joined by Nick DiCola, Teige Mullen, and Andrew Freeman. Check out the podcast on Twitter at 4StarPodCHI. Also, check out 4StarPodCHI.com. We have moved our 4 stars of the week to a blog post over there now that we're going to be getting into football, basketball, hockey season, along with baseball. Just want to keep the show as concise as possible for you guys so that it's, entertaining and watchable. You can find Nick on Twitter at Endicola21, Teige at TMMullen007, and Andrew at AJ Freeman25. All that being said, let's dig in on the Cubs. Had kind of a shorter week again, only 5 games. We had a 2-game set against the White Sox that we split, but overall won the season series 3-1, and had a series against the Royals. Pretty much did what we needed to do there. We did lose game 1 4-3, and that was a little tough, but we won the series, taking game 2 and game 3. So I know we've got a lot to discuss on kind of some bigger picture stuff, because those are teams that we were supposed to be able to beat up on, and we sort of did. We've moved up in the standings. So if you guys want to start digging in on the bigger picture, I will turn the floor over to you.
I just want to talk about how great that Christopher Morel walk-off was against the Sox. Like, that was just we've had a lot of like really great moments to see. It's this or Talkman with the walk-off robbing of the home run against the Cardinals at Bosh Stadium right before the deadline. It's between those two for me. I don't know which one I like better. I really don't. Because Morel, it's the crosstown series. You had the crowd at Wrigley Field going absolutely nuts. You had him like tearing his shirt off as he's running, sprinting around the bases.
Yeah.
But then you have Talkman just breaking the hearts of the entire city of St. Louis in front of them and basically saving the Cubs season. So I don't know. I think I like the Talkman one a little bit more, but this is just great. It was a great moment.
Yeah, I'd go Talkman too.
They're the 2 definitive moments of this season so far. And really, they kind of sum up this run that they're on right now, which is just or this season, really. They just give you a heart attack every time you watch them with this Cubs team. It feels like
2 guys that were not on the opening day roster and didn't make the roster for, a few months into the season.
Which puts into question, like, why did it take so long for this to happen?
Talkman, I get, because nobody expected Talkman to do what he's doing right
No.
now. It was basically like he got the opportunity and he ran with it. But Morel, we since opening day, we were like, get Morel playing time. He's like the best hitter in AAA by a mile, at least until PCA gets here. Like, get him to Wrigley.
Well, and to pivot, speaking of the opening day roster, it's taken another hit with Tucker Barnhart being DFA'd. I think, did that happen? Did we touch on it last week?
No, it happened after we recorded last week.
Got it. So, yeah, Tucker Barnhart, who we've been calling to get DFA'd since, May, finally got DFA'd, which means that the 3 biggest veteran presences that, other than Dansby Swanson, that we signed in the offseason, all got DFA'd. And Tucker Barnhart still has a year on his contract.
So did Mancini.
Yeah.
So you got 2 guys that signed 2-year deals that were just like, no.
I think Jed does listen to this podcast. He just likes to tease. He likes to cheer on, he likes to get your hopes up. But no, I mean, better late than never, I guess. But I've seen it on Twitter a bunch, and I agree. It's like, well, you're going to reap what you sow. If we miss the playoffs, right, and knock on wood, we're doing really well, and I think that this team can and will make the playoffs. But if we do, you got to remember why we did, and it's because of Ross's management. It's because of his lineup choices, because of the fact that Jed just gave these contracts, because I still think that he just did this year as another sell year on purpose, even though he never said it. He's like, no, I'll let the season decide whatever he's trying to say. I think he wanted to sell. I think he got Cody hoping he'd be great and that we'd suck, and then he could just sell more. I honestly do. So seeing us take this turn, seeing us actually take it seriously, I know now we just have left on our points. We'll talk about Stroman and David Ross. I don't know what we want to talk about first, but we could rant about David Ross.
Before we get to that, I just want to make a quick point on the Mancini Barnhart, just the what's the word? Just like the parade of suck that was our veteran bench signings. This is a tweet between Mancini, Barnhart, Hosmer, Edwin Rios, remember him. Luis Torrens, remember him. They combined. Not one of them had a positive WAR, wins above replacement. I know how we feel about WAR on this podcast, so I'm using it. Whatever. It's a fun tweet. Between those 5 players, they combined for negative 2.9 wins above replacement, and that's like, bearing in mind that I don't know how much combined time these guys spent like playing for the Cubs. I doubt they even have a full season between them. With all of them. Well, maybe they do. I don't know for sure. But that's basically -3 wins. So
and guess how many games behind the Brewers we are?
Three. So that's one of the things that I'm really disappointed is that when you bring in these free agents, I get that these guys weren't superstars, that we didn't expect them to light things up. You buy them because you're taking a flyer on them or whatever. But well, maybe not Barnhart and Mancini because they gave those guys 2-year contracts.
Hosmer, a year was too long. If you could hand out a 2-month contract, maybe.
Because that's 5 acquisitions that Jed made that provided negative value to this team on the field, and that can't happen when you're a team on the margins. This is a talented team, which is why they're still competing. I mean, you also have to remember the division sucks, but
we're a half game behind San Francisco for the second wild card spot. So it's not even just, going into this year, we all thought the only chance we were going to have at making the playoffs was winning the division because the division is so weak. We're the 5th best team in the National League, essentially, at this point. And we have beaten the best team in the National League. We've beaten a playoff contender in the American League.
We beat 2. We beat Rays, Orioles. Well,
yeah,
Rays, I don't know.
We broke the Rays.
We split with the Dodgers, or
I think we
7 games.
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever.
It's been a while, but we're a good baseball team, and God, how many games were we complaining about Miles Mastrobuoni being in the lineup? That's just wasted.
He's back. He's back. We can't win.
He was starting to turn it around when we sent him back to AAA. So I'm a little more okay with bringing him up this time, especially it's too early for PCA. We need to wait for September call-ups for sure. So I am a little more okay with Mastrobuoni as long as he's literally getting 1 start a week or coming into pinch hit in a weird spot or whatever. But regardless, there were so many questionable decisions made at the beginning, the middle stages of this year. It's we could be running away with the division right now if the lineups would. I don't want to 100% pin this on David Ross because, again, the talent pool that he had to pull from to make those terrible lineups was not a good one provided by Jed Hoyer.
Yeah, however, and you can't swing the bats for him. You can't pitch for them,
right.
Obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But he hasn't helped his case sometimes though. I
want to push back on that because there were some questionable decisions, and there still are some questionable.
I'm not saying there aren't.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying there aren't. We can look. Again, we were talking about the loss to the Royals. There were 2 errors. I know one was Patrick Wisdom, and I missed that game. But I know Teige put in our group chat Ross, why are you leaving Jameson Taillon in right now?
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm not saying that Ross is completely free from blame, but I also want to put some of that on Jed Hoyer for who he brought up from AAA, who he went out and signed in free agency, and who he provided David Ross with.
I mean, it would be, I don't know, it'd be one thing if we were doing this as a hindsight. I wonder if this is kind of a hindsight.
It kind of turned into that
thing because for instance, some of the moves that we've been talking about here, we've been banging the table on some of these, from the very beginning. So I think, I don't know. I think there is quite a bit of culpability, but
yeah, we've been we'll see it while the game's happening. This happened with Eric Hosmer. This happened with Patrick Wisdom this week, but Patrick Wisdom was in the lineup against a lefty, which is why he was in the lineup, even though Tauchman has better stats against lefties than Wisdom does this year because Wisdom's terrible. And then late in the game in a high leverage situation, Wisdom's facing a lefty and he gets pinch hit for. If he's not taking that at bat, pinch hitting for him is the right move. But if he's not able to take that at bat, if you have to pinch hit for him when you specifically put him in the lineup because there's a lefty pitcher on the mound, then what are you doing? And it was the same thing with Hosmer earlier in the year against righties. There were multiple moments moments like throughout the year where that happened. And it just comes down to like, all right, it's just like you're going to play these guys to like get them sometime. But then when it actually matters, you're like, oh shit, I got to just actually try to win this game. But then at that point, it's too little too late.
Yeah.
You have to maximize every chance you get. Like, I get it. You can't swing the bat for these guys, but you got to like put your players in positions to succeed and give your team the best chance to win. And David Ross hasn't been great at that this year.
Yeah.
And hey, to the devil's advocate, like Joe Madden, even right. Obviously, we look at him through rose-colored glasses, but he made some decisions too, where it'd be like, Joe, like your whole like weird vibes thing, man. Like you gotta
leaving Aroldis Chapman in.
Can you imagine if I'm so thankful that the Cubs won that series for obvious reasons, but I'm sure Joe Madden is because like, oh my god, he'd be
he's the scapegoat of that team.
He'd be the scapegoat.
100%. Yep.
Even not like, yes, we won and we look at it fondly, but even then on Twitter immediately you get the people being like, Madden would have like almost sank the whole ship, dude. So
oh yeah.
So yeah,
pulling Hendricks too early, leaving Chapman in way too long, and all that stuff.
Look, it's hard being a manager. Let me get it. It's hard being a pro. Got it. But come on, like I just like it is now. It's like it's kind of like the Rick Renteria kind of like, hey, you're gone because Joe Madden became available. I don't know who would become available as a manager for anybody to pull any triggers, but I'm just saying that like David Ross, I think could have some moments where you could right the ship a bit better, and it's time. Or it's playoff time.
I certainly agree.
I'm still not convinced that David Ross is a good manager. I think there is quite a bit more evidence we need. I would say that the record that the Cubs have isn't representative when you look at some of the other factors of like run differential and some of the other underlying metrics for this team. So when you factor that in, you can definitely see that there is a bit of an underachieving factor to this team this year. And a lot of that was because of that early stretch where it just felt like they couldn't get out of their own way, or Ross couldn't get out of his own way with some of the decisions he was making, and it was kind of dragging things down a little bit. So we'll have to see how the season ends and how he manages a team in a playoff scenario. I think to really, I guess, see where he's at, because I think that's going to be the big test for him, is because we got it over the course of a 182 game season. You're going to make a lot of dumb decisions as a manager. And there's a lot of decisions that we may think are dumb, from our couches or whatever, but him being with the team, knowing the dynamic of the team, there may be other reasons behind the scenes for why he's making certain decisions, right? So we got to factor that in. But like I said before, I'm still not sold on him.
Here's what I'll say, and then Jordan, you can make a point, and then we can move on if we want to.
My point was going to be transitioning. So if you got one more thing to add, go for it.
The one thing I say is that I think what just overall with the direction of this team going forward, I think what buying at the trade deadline does, what DFA'ing Mancini and Barnhart, even though they were 2-year contracts that the Cubs are just going to have to eat. Obviously it's not good that you signed 2 players to 2-year contracts that you got out of after a few months, but I think it's encouraging that Jed was just willing to eat that money, because I think that means he recognizes that this team has a window, and that window is sooner than he thought it was going to be, and he wants to take advantage of that. So whether that's aggressively spending in free agency next year, whether that's making a big move at manager, getting aggressive at manager if a good candidate comes down the board, I'm more optimistic than I was like this time last year that he would do something aggressive.
For sure.
So
yeah,
I'm very, regardless of what happens, like the rest of this season, playoffs or no, I'm very interested to see like what Jed does this offseason. It's going to be very big.
Last point I'll add, and then we can move on. The sign of a good GM is that they don't fall into the sunken cost fallacy, which is that you make a mistake, and instead of moving on from that mistake and trying to fix that mistake, you just double down and just create more problems for yourself.
We're experiencing that as Chicago fans,
right? We're way look at some of those teams on their phones. Yeah,
Ryan Pace.
Yeah, that's another good example, right? So that's what you don't want from
the Chicago Bulls, just
in general, right? Yeah, like
Dan
you want look. I mean, every general manager is going to make mistakes. Like, look at the NFL. Like, look at Howie Roseman for the Eagles. He's probably the best GM in football, and he's made plenty of mistakes along the way, but he doesn't continue to double down on those mistakes. He fixes those mistakes. So, again, Jed Hoyer, for all the mistakes he's made this offseason, he did do some good things. Bringing in Bellinger, who's having an MVP caliber season for the Cubs, Dansby Swanson, some of the other moves around the margins, like Ty kind of said, like they're a little bit ahead of schedule right now, I guess, compared to what we thought this was going to be or what maybe Jed thought. But you got to give him credit for recognizing the windows here and capitalizing on that.
Yeah, it does bode well that, again, better late than never. He's willing to cut bait. He's willing to eat that money, which I saw somebody on Twitter. I can never remember who it is because I see too many tweets, but somebody was saying that might even be an indicator that they're going to be willing to spend over the luxury tax next year, just because they're willing to.
Said that.
Got it.
If they can get Ohtani, man, then
seriously. And you know what? I still really, even logically, this isn't just me hoping and crossing my fingers and, praying. I do think logically Ohtani would be a good fit for Chicago and Chicago would be a good fit for Ohtani, but that's for another day.
Just imagine the jersey sales.
Seriously.
Is there a dollar amount that they could give? Is there a contract that they could give Ohtani next year where you'd be like, oh, that's too much? I wouldn't give him that.
Give him a blank check.
No, 10 years, 650, 10 years, 750. I don't care. Just get the man in a freaking Cubs uniform.
I probably wouldn't give him like $1 billion, to be honest, but yeah, I'd give him a lot.
I really do think 650, 750 is fair. You literally have the best player we've ever seen.
His contract's gonna start with a 6,
right?
At least.
And I think something like that, given the current circumstances, I think the Ricketts would be willing to spend it. But anyway, before we get too off topic, there is one more thing we wanted to talk about with the Cubs. We had mentioned we keep bringing up this playoff push, and our hopes of a strong playoff push may have taken a pretty significant hit. Marcus Stroman was about to come off of the IL, and then right before he was supposed to come back, he was diagnosed with a rib cartilage fracture, and nobody really knows how he got it, including Stroman, because, again, he had a bullpen session the day before he was going to come back and said he was feeling great, and then all of a sudden he felt some soreness. And it's such a fluky injury. There really is no timeline for his return. It could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to 6 weeks, which would put us into September when the playoffs are starting. So, we were all really hoping that he could come back and return to form, but now he's going to be sidelined even longer. So who knows what's going to happen there?
Well, it answers one thing. Homeboy is definitely taking his player contract off.
Oh, yeah.
So, at least we didn't have to worry about that. Good for us in that department. Otherwise, what can you say, man? Just step up. Javier Assad is stepping up. Again, he's doing well. He did well tonight. He went 5 1/3, two runs.
Yeah.
Next man up mentality. And I think a lot of these guys have it. I think the clubhouse vibe is good. And I think they're ready. They'll be ready for when he comes back. And that's all we need to really say.
Big picture, it definitely puts a cloud on whether you want to get any extension done with him, because you look at the trajectory here, and older pitcher, he was kind of losing steam as the season went along. It seemed like before he got hurt, and now you're dealing with all the injuries right now. He's probably going to pick up that player option next year, as Teige said, and I think. If I'm Jed in this situation, unless like Stroman just has like a Cy Young caliber year next year, which you never know, could happen. I think I'm considering just letting it be this upcoming player option year, and then just.
Especially like you said, big picture. Direction. If we do win the Shohei sweepstakes, all right, later. Thanks for a second year. Be with Shohei.
If you want to have
Stroman, Steele, Tyone, and then whoever's your fifth guy, or Hendricks, or maybe even Assad, who knows, whatever. But again, with that rotation for the year, awesome. And then after that, okay, thanks for the service.
I think regardless, whether we get Shohei or if it's somebody else, we need another star caliber pitcher in the rotation. We need to make a good signing this offseason, or I know our pitcher development has actually been really, really good of late. So hopefully, if we can't get somebody in free agency, we have, I know Ben Brown's been doing good. Cade Horton, I believe, is a pitcher. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But there's been some guys tearing it up in the minor leagues. So hopefully, September rolls around. Now that we have an extra 40-man roster spot because Tucker Barnhart's gone, we can bring somebody up and, get a quick view at them, and hopefully they'll have a good spring training.
It would be really great if at least one of those guys could just lock down a rotation spot next year. Even Hayden Wisniewski,
if he can turn it on, just somebody. We need somebody that
we need pitching.
We need somebody that can consistently throw 6 innings of 2-run baseball or less.
Look at the Braves, who are just spitting out pitching talent, and they're the best team in the National League. We need that. We want that.
Wearing my Roquan Smith Bears jersey, unfortunately he's no longer with the team because that's how the Bears go. But defense does still win championships, whether it's baseball or any other sport. You can't win if you can't score. So with all that being said, I think we can wrap up the Cubs segment here. As always, give a quick preview of the schedule coming up. So right now they are in the top of the 8th in Detroit, up 4-2. Got another game against the Tigers tomorrow and Wednesday, and then immediately travel to Pittsburgh Thursday through Sunday for a 4-game series against the Pirates. This is a very, very winnable stretch of the schedule. We need as many of these games as we can possibly get because, again, I think we're 3 games behind the Brewers. As of this morning, we were a half game back of the second wild card spot. So if we win this game and the Giants lose theirs, we're the 5th best team in the National League in the standings. So definitely need to eat up this part of the schedule. Moving on, though, we'll switch to the Bears, who played a preseason game and lost a preseason game against the Colts. First one that Matt Eberflus has lost.
I'm so sad.
But none of the starters were really playing. We had a couple of joint practices in Indy that I heard reports went very, very well. So there really wasn't a need to put the first team out there. Was it 21-17, I believe?
24-17.
24-17. Man, I am last week and this week, I'm within a couple of points. But
it helps that I got the box score pulled up so I can easily correct you.
You cheater. That's what it is.
Welcome to the NFL preseason where the scores are made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
I'll turn it over to you. I watched the first quarter, and when none of the starters were playing, I was like, this doesn't even look like professional football. I can't take this anymore. So I turned it off.
As is tradition for anyone who watches preseason.
I think we have to ask the weekly question. Was he late on the snap?
He looked better. From what
he
I
did
saw,
look better. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, the big takeaway for me watching.
That's Trevon Dexter, by the way.
Yeah,
for those that
Trevon
aren't
Dexter.
familiar.
He looked better. He definitely wasn't as late off the snaps in this game as he was in the previous game against the Titans, where holy cow, it was
tough.
It was tough to watch.
Tough to watch.
But he did. Yeah, I thought he looked a little bit more disruptive. You can still see even besides the getting off the snap issue for Dexter, there are still a lot of things he's got to work on. He still doesn't have any pass rush moves, so
still too tall,
still too high off the snap. And there were definitely some plays where he was getting driven off the ball against single teams and double teams in the run game, which you don't want to see for a guy as big as him. But he was getting into the backfield a little bit more. He looked a little bit more disruptive, which is nice. Just looked more athletic and explosive in general, which was kind of the selling point that the Bears were giving us when they made the pick, was that because of what he was asked to do in Florida, he wasn't able to kind of showcase that athleticism and explosiveness off the snap, and we saw a bit more of it. I actually thought that Zach Pickens, the 3rd-round pick, had a nice game as well. I don't understand why they have him playing nose tackle, because he is not a nose tackle. He shouldn't be probably at the NFL level, but maybe they're just giving him a different look there, because I don't know, because that was not how he played in college, but he looked pretty decent taking on double teams and stuff in this game, which I thought was surprising, because that was the worst aspect of his game in college. That guy would get blown off the ball quite frequently against double teams in college. And so that was nice to see. Yeah, but I think the biggest takeaway has to be that the Bears might have a quarterback controversy here, not for the starting quarterback controversy,
For
the backup
once.
quarterback, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, it's been an ongoing theme, even going back to training camp. But PJ Walker has not looked good as the QB2 for the Bears so far, and like he doesn't look good. He hasn't looked, really good in the practices. He certainly has not looked good in the games. Like the games have been like, look at his stat line in the game so far. Like they're comically bad. Like these are like 1970s numbers that he's putting up here in the passing game. I know it's a small sample size, but like it's rough, guys. It's really bad. And then you have Tyson Bagent, who undrafted free agent, rookie, had a lot of experience in college. Looks pretty solid in this game. He got the bulk of the snaps in the first half. He went 9 to 10, 76 yards, had a rushing touchdown in there. And what impressed me was that just the decision making and the way he got the ball out in time. He was pretty accurate. He's not going down the field a lot. He's not making a ton of plays, extending plays. There's nothing like spectacular with what he's doing. But I don't know. I just thought from a command of the offense standpoint, he looked comfortable delivering all the throws and whatnot. I don't think he's one of those things where I think he should get more of a chance to earn that quarterback 2 job or even just get a roster spot, because man, the Bears have just not been a good organization at developing quarterback talent. And that's not even just with the starting quarterbacks, but like backups and just having that, that emphasis as an organization to develop that position. So it would be nice if they were able to hit on a guy who, I don't think he's going to be anything more than like a backup in the league, but he looked pretty good in this preseason game.
If you can get a guy like Chad, I think it's Chad Henne.
Yeah, Chad Henne.
Backup for he was backup for the Bears for a little bit when
Kyle.
Holy cow, Matt, our last coach, Matt Nagy. Holy cow,
Matt Nagy.
He was over here with Nagy, backing
Chase
up
Daniel?
Patrick Mahomes, right? Oh, Chase Daniel. No, I meant Chase Daniel. Excuse me. My bad. Not Chad Henne. But Chase Daniel is like the perfect career backup quarterback. He's intelligent. He knows the system that he's in. So it'd be nice to have someone like that you just keep around because they know the system.
And he makes a lot of money for holding a clipboard, which is excellent for a career choice.
Did you guys see Bleacher Report put out a tweet with Tyson Bagent's career stats when he was at Shepherd? Did you guys see this?
No, I didn't see this.
I did not.
69% completion rating, 17,034 yards, 159 touchdowns, 48 interceptions, 305.3 passing yards per game. I mean, like, I know it's D2, but those are just insane stats for a college career.
I'm sure he's the most popular guy on that campus.
I love it. Oh man, so, yeah.
I mean, to counterpoint, PJ Walker looks very good in my Madden 24 franchise so far as a backup quarterback. So I'm still rooting for you, PJ.
Yeah, because Madden definitely knows everything there is to know about football and never
the pinnacle of realism,
especially for Bears players.
Well, they still haven't figured out defensive line versus offensive linebacker terminology.
Still haven't figured out the game.
They haven't figured out a lot of things, but I mean that's just one of them, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think PJ Walker's still going to be QB2 when it's all said and done. I would just like to see them give the rookie a shot just to see what could happen, because I don't know. When the Walker sign was made, I was like, it's fine. Like he has a connection with DJ Moore, so that kind of made sense. That you want to have somebody that can at least, like, if Justin Fields goes down, you can just go to the backup and say, hey, just chuck it up to number 1 and see what happens, like 10 times a game. And maybe we can steal a win with you in the game, which is what PJ Walker is basically here to do. But I don't know. If Bagent can be anything, like that would be a nice little find for Ryan Poles and company there. I don't know. It's preseason. You don't want to overreact to these types of things. Like Bagent hasn't shown that he can actually like make throws beyond like 20 yards consistently. Like even in practices, he's kind of like a check down king, which is, what you kind of expect.
So but Brady.
I
Nice imagine is Tom Brady.
Not to bring up my heated moment from last week again, but so is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're looking for from a backup quarterback, though, is you're not looking for a guy that's going to be throwing haymakers,
Right.
10 times a game. Looking for someone that can just execute the offense and not get you in trouble, which
exactly
you hope that agent can be. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with this one, but I've been low-key pretty impressed with him in these 2 preseason games, and I don't know.
Do you think
Give
he
him a
makes
shot. Why not?
Do you think he makes the roster? Do you think they put him on the roster?
I think he probably should make the roster at least.
Well, don't we get like the free quarterback 3 now?
Oh, right.
The teams do that. So
my understanding is that you can get 3 quarterbacks, and that doesn't count against your
that's nice
53-man roster on game days.
Sorry, Peter.
Thank you, San Francisco 49ers, for having 4 different quarterbacks in a game.
Right.
Not in a game, but
that's my understanding of it, though. I could be completely wrong on that. I'm still not quite clear on what the exact rules of that are. But yeah, theoretically, you could get 3 quarterbacks if you really like him that much. If you cut him and try to bring him back to the practice squad, would an NFL team out there try to take him from you? I don't know.
I mean, teams are desperate for quarterback. If he's shown
right, but they're going to like their own guys too. So
but I don't know.
It's tough to say. I think at the very least, I think they can probably stash him back in the practice squad and see what happens there. But I don't know. I could see a scenario where they keep 3 quarterbacks and he's on the roster as your designated quarterback 3. Because I don't think they're going to eat the money on PJ Walker. They very well could, and I would applaud Ryan Poles for doing that if that's the case. If they really feel like Bagent can be, the guy for that spot. But I don't know. I think it's very unlikely. They gave him that guaranteed money for a reason this year, and that's probably because they see him as the backup.
Yeah. Was there anybody else that you saw have any big splash plays or make some noise that you're excited about? Rookies, free agent signings, anything like that this past week?
Yeah,
I know it's a little tough when it's literally the second and the third team out there the whole game. But
yeah, and that's the thing. You don't want to, especially in the trenches, you don't want to overreact too much to these guys because, going up against backup, practice squad edge rushers for an offensive lineman is way different than going up against the Myles Garretts, the TJ Watts. Those aren't just freak athletes. Those are alien athletes that you're going up against. And yeah, to Aaron Donald's as well, Chris Jones's. So it's a completely different sport when you're thinking about the level of competition here. But I will say one guy that consistently has stood out to me has been Tyree Carter, who was a 6th-round pick of the Bears last year in Ryan Poles' first draft. He plays right guard he's been playing right guard for them in preseason, but he can play any of the 3 interior positions. But he's looked really good out there. He's looked like a guy that could have a spot as your 6th man off the offensive line, off the bench, to play any of those interior spots. He's looked pretty solid, lockdown in pass protection, athletic in the run game, showing some nasty, which you want to see. Tyreek Stevenson, I thought he had a down week. He actually had a chance to get an interception in this game, and the ball literally went through his hands for a touchdown play. And I felt really, really bad for him because he was in perfect position to make the play and just missed it by inches, literally inches. But he had a little bit of a down week
outside
after a really strong week 1. But the last guy I'll bring up here is Terrell Lewis. He was a 2nd-round pick of the Los Angeles Rams, I think in 2020 or 2021. It's one of those 2 years. But really talented player. A lot of people thought he was a first-round talent coming out of the draft, but just injuries at Alabama kept him from realizing his potential and caused him to drop. He had a sack in this game. He looks really, really good out there. He's looked good in practices. He had a good week 1. And I think he's going to find his way on the roster here because he's got good tools. He has good pass rush technique. He does know how to get to the quarterback. I don't know. He's a guy that they kind of took a swing on him. It's kind of like, oh, he's this talented player who's just battled so many injuries. Why not take a flyer on him? And if he can stay healthy, I think he could make an impact from down the road if he makes the roster. So those were a couple of the guys that kind of stood out to me.
Well, I think the last thing we got to bring up then, and this one breaks my heart because I am the biggest Tevin Jenkins stan ever, I think. But Tevin Jenkins has not one, but 2 calf strains. So now he's out with injury again, which has just been the story of his entire career since we drafted him. I mean, the dude's an animal on the line. He was one of the only people that stood up for Justin Fields when he got late hit last year, I believe. I know Nick did his Jermaine Ifedi rant.
That was his rookie year.
Rookie year. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, injuries popping up, and it's been the story of his career. And, that's on an already shaky offensive line, I think. Obviously we tried to improve it this offseason, but somebody going down with injury before the season even starts on that line is not going to bode well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, look, I don't think this is going to be a long-term deal for Tevin. It sounds like he's going to be out maybe the first couple of weeks of the season at most, which would suck. But, I mean, that's why you have guys like Ja'Tyre Carter. It's why you have guys like Lucas Patrick on the roster that can kind of fill in for those couple games that he does miss in a year. But I think this is just always going to be the story with Tevin, unfortunately, is just going back to college. Like, he had the back issue his rookie year that kept him out for most of the season. Even last year, he had a couple of minor injuries here and there that took him off the field. He's just one of those guys, like some of these guys, just the physicality of the game, their bodies just aren't built to withstand it. And it sucks because you miss out on seeing these guys really maximize their potential. And Tevin Jenkins, when he's on the football field, is awesome. But it's starting to get to the point where you just always have to wonder, like, when's the next injury going to be? Can I rely on him to be a guy that can play all 17 games in a season now, or with, even make it through an entire season to get us into the playoffs, right? And when this especially becomes important is, like, next offseason, Tevin Jenkins is going to be eligible for an extension with the team. Do the Bears even consider making an extension at this point if he can't stay on the football field? And it sucks because Tevin Jenkins, talent-wise, might be the most talented, best lineman on the roster, but the number one ability, as they say, is availability. And if you're not available, it doesn't matter how good you are. You got to be on the field, and your coaching staff and your team has got to know that they can rely on you to be on the field. And so far, it just hasn't been the case for Tevin. It seems like there's always something with him, and that's just problematic.
And then on the extension talk, I mean, it seems like this is a long time ago, but like at the beginning of last training camp, there was that whole thing where I think he requested a trade, or there was rumors that he had requested a trade, or like it seemed like he was really in the doghouse with the coaching staff and all that.
I don't think he ever requested a trade, but he was definitely in the doghouse.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, you when this news came out that he got hurt again, you made a really good comp to another Bears player that fans love. I'll let you.
This was not me.
I swear it was.
It was not me.
Okay, somebody said he was like Kyle Long.
It was me. He's Kyle Long.
My bad.
Hurt. Sorry, I've been kind of silent because I haven't had much to add. But yeah, go Bears, 17-0. Kyle
Long. That was the most unenthusiastic 17-0 I have ever heard in my life. Teige, tell us how you really feel.
Dude, I'm just tired, y'all. I'm so tired. It's been such a long day.
Oh, man.
I mean, shit. If Tevin could be Kyle Long, I'd love it, but it's a high standard.
Yeah. Do we have anything else we want to add with the Bears? Or all right, I guess we can move on. The NBA schedule got released. I didn't really pay too close attention to it. The only thing I saw is that they are doing the in-season tournament, which I know Andrew and Nick are both huge fans of. If you can't tell through audio, that was heavy sarcasm. They hate it. They think it's a dumb idea. Did you guys want to hit on any important things you saw or anything?
It's going to be a miserable season.
I don't know.
82-0.
I'm ready for the Bulls to. I'm ready for the Bulls to win half their games and lose half their games and sneak into the 8 or 9 seed and then get swept in the first round.
Yeah, I can't wait for.
I think that's about all we're expecting.
Giannis is going to dunk on them and just put his nutsack in their faces 4 times a game, and it's going to be fun. And we're going to love it. I don't know. They're not on Christmas this year, which is pretty embarrassing for the third biggest media market in the sport. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know about how the NBA views the Bulls and how TV and how the networks view the Bulls this year, which is to say, not very exciting. So, yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot to look forward to as there is for most Bulls seasons. Yeah, I don't know. There's just not a lot to take away. Like, who knows? They'll probably mess around and win the in-season tournament just to spite us and get and then finish the year as a play-in team and then get knocked out there because that's the way this thing usually goes.
Well, we've still got about another month and a half before NBA preseason. We've got just about a month before hockey preseason, so we'll definitely keep our eyes open for when that rolls around. With all of that, I think no real news on the Blackhawks. Just can't wait to see Connor Bedard in an actual Blackhawks uniform. But I think we can move on to the 180s. So, Andrew, if you would like to start, the floor is yours for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, speaking of the Chicago Bulls, it's time to go back in time to talk about the summer of 2010 and the super team that could have been here in Chicago. This is something that came up on Twitter a few days ago, I think, or like earlier in the week. But Casey Johnson, a reporter who covers the Bulls, he mentioned on like a podcast or something that the Bulls, they actually had the chance to bring in the big three of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh to the Bulls during that summer if they only did one move, and that was they were proposed a trade from the Los Angeles Clippers for the number 8 overall pick if they traded them Luol Deng. So the only thing standing in the way of the Bulls of getting the big three of LeBron James, Wade, and Bosh was if they traded Luol Deng to the Clippers for the 8th pick. That would have freed up enough cap space. And Dwayne Wade's been on record of saying this, that Chicago, they were their number 2 choice behind New York. So that basically, if the Bulls were able to clear up enough space to make it work, they were going to come to Chicago. And to put into perspective how incredible that roster would have been, not only do you get the big three of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, you have prime Derrick Rose on that roster still. You have prime Joakim Noah on that roster still. Taj Gibson was on that roster. I think they would have had enough to bring in Kyle Korver still. And they probably could round out the roster with a couple of other shooters and defenders. Like, again, you don't really need a lot of great role players when you got that much star power on your team. But here's the thing, the 8th pick in that draft, that could have gotten them one of either Gordon Hayward, who was an all-star, or Paul George, who was an all-NBA MVP candidate. So imagine this roster at point guard. You got prime Derrick Rose. You got prime Dwayne Wade, peak LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Joakim Noah. Off the bench, you have Kyle Korver, Taj Gibson, and Paul George or Gordon Hayward. That's the greatest team of all time. I don't care if Derrick Rose tears his ACL the next year. Dwayne Wade had a pretty quick drop off the year after that. It still doesn't matter. You still got LeBron. You still got Bosh. You still got Noah. You still got Paul George or Gordon Hayward. Like, just ridiculous. And that could have all happened in Chicago, but the Bulls weren't willing to trade Luol Deng because they didn't have the foresight to make that happen. So, again, this is complete hindsight. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Don't forget Brian Scalabrine off the bench.
And Brian Scalabrine will go off the bench. The White Mamba.
The White Mamba.
That's right.
The linchpin to the whole operation.
Absolutely. But damn. This is complete hindsight analysis. I don't know how realistic this would have been, but it was definitely plausible. It was possible. It could have happened if Garpax would have been willing to make it happen. And as a Bulls fan, it just makes me sad to think about because of how, as exciting it was to root against those Heat teams. And I remember Nick and I, we actually watched the game. I was at Nick's house. I remember we watched the game where the Bulls broke the Heat's big winning streak in 2013. How exciting would it have been to have that streak be on the Bulls instead of having to root against, that team, right? So, yeah, it's just another one of those depressing things as a Bulls fans of the what ifs of this organization. Screw you, Jerry Reinsdorf, you suck.
As is tradition, got to get into screw you, Jerry Reinsdorf.
That's right.
All right. Well, for my 180 this week, we're going to discuss a little bit of baseball here. Shout out to Secret Base on YouTube. They're an awesome YouTube channel. Tons of great content. Dorktown, if you have an hour a week to sit and watch episodes, awesome. But one of my favorite shows that they do is called Rewinder, where they take a look at very important moments in sports history, show you the lead up, show you what happened, all of that. And the one they did this past week was the 1998 home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. And what I didn't realize, being born in 1997 and not having any memory of this happening because I was one, was the 1994 baseball strike. And I didn't realize until within the last year, really, how important this home run chase was to bringing people back to liking baseball after the 1994 strike. Another thing a lot of people don't realize, when all of this was going on and the whole steroid controversy came out, this stuff wasn't illegal. I know I've kind of harped on steroid users in the past, but there was nothing in the rules about not using steroids back then. So none of these guys technically broke the rules, and yet none of them are still in the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire shouldered baseball and made people love baseball again. And he gets left out of the Hall of Fame after beating Roger Maris to single-season home run record. And the real reason I wanted to bring this up is that Sammy Sosa is still not welcome at Wrigley Field. And I know it's been talked about going on a few years now, but can we please just let Sammy back? How big a part of our childhood collectively was Sammy Sosa? He was my favorite player when I was younger. The little trot after his home runs, pointing up to the sky after 9/11 when he ran out to right field with the American flag. Come on, Cubs, it's time to let Sammy back. I'm okay retiring his number even. He meant a lot to the organization. He meant a lot to baseball. Just let Sammy come back. I don't think he needs an apology. I don't think he needs to provide an apology.
Didn't he say that he wasn't interested in coming back though? Or is it just because they've staffed him so much?
They still go back and forth so much that he does it. If I remember correctly, he wants to come back, but he's not willing to do it unless they openly welcome him.
Yeah.
Because he still feels like he's been shut out of the organization.
I'll say this on the topic in general because this is something I feel very strongly about. But the steroid era saved baseball in the late 90s and early 2000s. And you know what? The writers who are in charge of the Hall of Fame for baseball, they were complicit in this. They knew it was happening and they didn't do anything about it. Or they didn't write about it. They were completely complicit in it because they knew that it was good for the game.
To further your point, if you guys haven't seen this Rewinder yet, I highly recommend checking it out. They did a great job with it. But there was a writer who called out Mark McGwire on his steroids because Mark McGwire actually left the bottle very prominently in his open locker. He's like, yes, I am taking this testosterone supplement because it wasn't illegal. He wanted everybody to know what was going on. And one beat writer made a point about it and said that it's tarnishing everything he's doing. And all of the other writers attacked the other writer for calling McGwire out on it. And not only were they complicit in it, they encouraged it and discouraged the person who tried reporting on it.
So it's completely hypocritical. It's so hypocritical for these writers to hold a grudge like this for not allowing, it's a crime that Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame. The greatest hitter in the history of baseball isn't in the Hall of Fame. For what? Because the writers want to show how.
Remember, you only get into the Hall if you're a Boston Red Sox, like David Ortiz. Then you get into the Hall. But if you're not,
it's ridiculous. Yeah, and Sammy.
Roger Clemens was a Red Sox, and he did not make it into the Hall.
Yeah, but Schilling did Schilling? I think Schilling.
No, Schilling did. Schilling didn't for other reasons.
That's true. Schilling's kind of. Anyways. All right. Yeah. moving on. I'm trying to wrap this up. I got a quick one this week for everybody. We're going back to the movies next week, but this week is Notre Dame week 1 matchup against Navy in Dublin, Ireland, which I think is pretty cool. That would be cool to see. I don't know, whatever. Regardless, I wrote an open letter to Notre Dame. It's a short one. Dear Notre Dame, as we approach week 1 matchup against Navy, I think I speak for all of us Notre Dame fans when I say, shit, here we go again. I can't wait to watch Gerard Parker, I don't know how to say his name, talk about having a game plan before reverting to tight end screen 10 times a game. You think that the literal tight end coach is going to dial up any place that atrocious wide receiver core? At least we got lucky and got Tommy Rees moved on to Alabama. How that man got that job, I'll never know. Alabama must have watched him call a quarterback draw 6 times in a row last year, get his starter hurt, and go, yeah, that's our guy. And then Bugner, the starter, followed him. Like, buddy, Tyler, baby, this man will not set you up for success. Anyways, my hatred for Tyler Reese's play calling was not that's not even his name. Whatever, Tommy Rees. Play calling was not the intent of this. All right, it's a tangent, but it was a design tangent. Notre Dame is destined to being good enough to be relevant, but not good enough to win a natty ever again. Just the way my Chicago Irish Catholic butt likes it. Masochism must really be our specialty because I could choose to root for any other team with an actual chance. But here I sit every Saturday, every Sunday, every day when the Cubs play, watching you all play, and I watch Notre Dame play football like the 1960 Bears. Good defense, good running game, no quarterback. Leave it to you to finally get a decent passing quarterback this year, and he's a graduate student from Wake Forest, and then he'll be gone next year. I'm so excited. Notre Dame, I know I tease and I criticize a lot, mind you, but I really do root for you every single Saturday. So whatever, play like a champion today. Natty, here we come. Something dark side, something complete. That's all I got.
Oh man,
nice one.
So I'm going to take a quick tangent here because we're still a little bit under time and we still have Nick to go. Did shout out to our buddy Ryan Jones. Went to middle school with Nick, Teige, and I. Did he ever tell you the story of when he was little and he was at a Notre Dame game?
No.
So if I'm remembering this correctly, and Ryan, hopefully you're listening and you can let me know if I need to correct this next week. But Ryan looks very Irish, red hair, freckles, like the whole nine. And so he went to a Notre Dame game when he was like 8 or 10 or something like that. And they saw him in the stands. The mascot in a little leprechaun uniform comes over, grabs him, and starts tossing him up in the air. I'm like 90% sure I got that story right. But Ryan, I will let you know that I told that story, and if you want to correct me, you can. But I just always think that's hilarious.
I've never actually been in South Bend yet. I still have to go. I think I went when I was like 2, but I don't count that. So I still have to go.
I haven't been either.
I've driven through there. Haven't actually.
I feel like that's like the only appeal.
Does anybody ever actually stop in Indiana? I feel like it's Ohio. You just kind of
that's the only part of that area that you go.
You get off on the rest stops and that's it.
Indianapolis is nice. I'll give Indianapolis credit. It's a nice city.
Yeah,
I've had fun whenever I've been there.
Yeah,
you go for the Indy 500 and Memorial Day weekend, and then
they have some really good pork tenderloins in Indianapolis. How about? I'll give a shout out for that. Or Indiana in general. I'll give a shout out for that.
Oh man! All right, Nick, you want to take it over?
Yes, I do. So my segment this week is also about college football because I am just so darn excited for college football season to start back up again. And to celebrate this, I thought I would take you guys through a journey and recap what I believe to be the greatest game in the history of college football. October 23rd, 2004. The 4-2 Iowa Hawkeyes travel to Penn State to take on the 2-4 Nittany Lions. On Iowa's first possession, a bad snap on a punt attempt ends up in the end zone. Rather than letting the defense pick it up for an easy score, Iowa's punter just kicks the ball out of the back of the end zone, resulting in a safety. Score is 2-0 Penn State. Teams trade punts before Penn State gets the ball back at the Iowa 24-yard line thanks to a great punt return. A couple of penalties and a sack turned that into a 4th and 19 from the 33. Just offensive masterclass so far. So Penn State brings out a young Robbie Gould. That Robbie Gould for a 51-yard field goal attempt, which falls just short. Spoiler alert, it's going to be a rough day for Robbie. Iowa responds with a long drive that culminates in a 27-yard field goal of their own. The score is 3-2 Iowa. Iowa tacks on another field goal midway through the second quarter after picking off Penn State quarterback Zach Mills to give them a commanding 6-2 lead. Now, this is going to be the score for a while, so I'm just going to run through the result of every drive that happened between now and the next time points were scored. Penn State punt, Iowa interception, Penn State interception, Iowa punt, Penn State punt, Iowa punt, Penn State punt, Iowa punt. However, this Iowa punt was blocked, and Penn State got the ball back inside Iowa's 10-yard line. Well, they go 3 and out, obviously, but they give future Pro Bowl kicker Robbie Gould an easy 25-yard field goal attempt. And yeah, he's missed one today, but that one would have tied his career long in college to that point. And he came up just short on that one. So surely he'll nail this one, right? Well, he didn't. And we're back. Iowa punt, Penn State punt, Iowa punt, Penn State punt, Iowa fumble, Penn State interception. For those of you not counting at home, that is 15 straight possessions without a single score. The streak ends here, though, and in the funniest way possible. So Iowa somehow finds themselves in 4th and 17 from their own 1-yard line. Don't ask me how. It's just Iowa things. Rather than attempting to punt out of the back of their own end zone, they opt to take an intentional safety to cut their own lead down to 2 points. Now, if you've watched football long enough, like we all have, you've probably seen teams do this from time to time, but that's usually when there's very little time left in the game and the 2 points still keeps like a multiple possession lead or at least more than a field goal. There were 8 minutes left in the game when Iowa did this, and it brought Penn State within 2. This is basically just Iowa holding up a big neon sign that says, "We know you can't do shit on offense." And guess what? They were right. Penn State's last 2 drives both ended in turnovers, and the game ended with a final score of Iowa 6, Penn State 4. 315 yards of total offense, 16 first downs, 14 punts, 7 turnovers, 2 missed field goals. Does college football get any better than this? I would argue no, and I can't wait to spend my Saturdays hoping somewhere out there a game will match the absolute greatness of this game.
No,
God bless the Big Ten, at least until they added all those dumb West Coast schools. You all can fuck off.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like this isn't a true like college football issue. I think this is a Big Ten college football
That's
issue.
just your classic. That's just your run.
That's a classic Big Ten. If you don't like that, you don't like Big Ten football.
Yeah, that's right.
If
Iowa,
you
honestly,
specifically Iowa.
This game is on YouTube and it's like shortened so that way it's quicker too. So like I don't know how long the video is. But if you haven't watched it, Nick was the one that told me about it a couple years ago, and I can't recommend it enough. It is so good. I just like that's how God wanted this game to be played.
It's wonderful.
It's I don't want not the 50-point high flying, Rams versus Chiefs. It's this. That's the game.
All right, I have a new non-podcast episode idea, like just random podcast thing. If we're ever all in the same area again, we just need to live stream us, the 4 of us together, watching that game. Because I think that would actually be worth.
I'm totally down. No, we we gotta do. We gotta do that right before an actual Iowa game, and then live stream the Iowa game too.
So if anyone wants to see 6 hours straight, a 4-star podcast.
Iowa's playing Northwestern at Wrigley Field this year.
Oh yes, yes, we got
too easy.
I legitimately would blow my brains out.
No,
not even.
Oh,
it would absolutely happen if we did
the Northwestern game that's going to be at Wrigley this year, because I think both are going to be about as good as the other.
I'm not as nearly as big of a masochist as you guys are, so I would be screwed if we did this. I don't know if I'd make it.
Embrace your inner sicko, Andrew.
Oh God. I'm all for sicko football, but
isn't it still like the same coach in Iowa? Like the Iowa coach.
Yeah,
from
it was.
Game is
it was the same coach. It was Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah, because that dude will never leave.
And his son Brian Ferentz, who's currently Iowa's offensive coordinator, so he's doing a bang up job there. He was in this game at right guard.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's. I almost like that, like I just went on my whole Notre Dame thing. I almost wish I grew up an Iowa fan, just because, come on, man, how, oh man, that's living life. That's living life. Like
corn fed.
Yeah, it's setting up great to be a Chicago sports fan. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you like disappointment? We got disappointment, baby. Let's go. Oh God. All right, do we have anything else we want to talk about, or should we?
No, we can cut
Okay,
it.
I think we're good.
Well, on that note, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed us completely devolving into just shitting on Iowa football at the end there.
Or praising it, however you look at it.
Just the offense, which even Iowa fans will shit on their offense.
That's fair.
They know.
Yeah.
It's hard to not know.
Yeah, they're very
They're special.
Yeah.
That offense is special.
They're a very reflective bunch, the Iowa fans. Gorgeous campus. I liked it.
Oh,
that was
Iowa's
nice.
great.
I've got a really funny Iowa story, but I'll save that for another time. We've hit the hour mark, so somebody remind me later next time it gets brought up. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jordan DuPont, joined as always by Nick Nicola, Teige Mullen, and Andrew Freeman. Check us out on Twitter at 4StarPodCHI. Check out the website where we've moved our 4 Stars of the Week segment to a blog post, 4starpodchi.com. You can find Nick on Twitter at Endicola21, Teige at TMMullen007, and Andrew at AGFreeman25. You can also check out his other work for the Bear Report at 247sports.com and the Picks for Polls podcast. And I'm sure his lineman grades are going to be coming real soon now that we've only got 1 week of preseason left, and I highly recommend checking those out. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back ranting and raving again next weekend. Hope you have a good one.